Welcome to Toffee TV. I am joined by Paddy Boyland, top goal scorer when we played at Goodison the other week. Paddy from the Blue Room, he's a freelance journalist as well, does lots, and he's also a Euro hipster, so we'll be getting more of his Matt come in last week trying to hipster it up. Paddy, I reckon Paddy edges it, Matt, if you watch.
Can I try and hipster him? Yeah.
So you know, I think you can do it, man. You've come in, look here, you're looking like the fifth member of the Beatles, so that's already winning on Matt's James Blunt impressions. But Paddy, when Matt was in, it was 2 weeks ago, when Matt was in, we spoke about Everton's season in general and the things that he was impressed with. So I guess we'll do the same with you before we go on to other stuff. So just your general thoughts about Ronald Koeman's first season at Goodison.
I think the stated aim for Koeman was to get Everton back into Europe, and he did do that, didn't he? We did it pretty comfortably in the end. 7th guaranteed Europe. We were way better than West Brom down in 8th, with likes of Southampton as well. But looking back on it, you wonder if enough progress is being made. And what I mean is, we've already seen Man City going out and spending 50 million on Bernardo Silva.
Yeah.
Everton are trying to get into the top 4, so we need to be competing in the transfer market, and we need to be putting our best foot forward already. So there's light and shade, isn't there? There's some positive things, but at the same time you look at the away record and also the record in derby games, and you think there's still room for significant improvement for Everton, isn't there?
Definitely. I mean, you're right. Koeman said, and I spoke about this with Ped the other week. We were saying that he came in and it was quite a bold statement that he made when he come in, because he was quite up front with he wanted to get Everton to Europe for the season. Now that meant at that time Everton finishing top 5 or winning one of the 2 cups. So I thought he put a lot of pressure on himself. I know he had to, because the regime, the upper echelons of Goodison has changed now. Farhad is in there now. Farhad Moshiri, he wants success. He brought Koeman in quite openly because Klopp's here and Marino's in this area and Guardiola, and he doesn't want Everton being left behind. So I thought Koeman was quite brave in stating that he wanted Europe. Now the cynics, and some cynics on my timeline, will point to the fact that we had to rely on Manchester United winning the League Cup, and we had to rely on Arsenal and say Chelsea, who eventually got to the cup final, being in those places and winning the trophies for us to get Europe. But I suppose if Ronald Koeman was sat here, he'd say, well, I'd done exactly what I said I would do. That would be year 1 of the plan, was to get Everton into Europe. And a lot of people, and I don't know why, but a lot of people belittle the Europa League.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's a great stepping stone. It's a great way of learning how to play in Europe. I'd use the example of Seville, the way they used it many years ago. Atletico Madrid.
Yeah.
It's a chance for us to try and do a similar thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I also think it doesn't really matter how Everton got into Europe. It's just about doing it.
Being there.
I think the best way to look at this would be, say, a 3-year project. That's what Koeman tends to do at clubs. He has 3 years, 1 contract, and then moves on. So the stated aim for the first season was to get back into Europe. Second, you're looking for something a bit different.
Yeah.
That's the difficult thing, isn't it? In my opinion, it's easier to go from 11th to 7th than it is from 7th to 5th or 4th.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of money, a lot of effort, and to be honest, completely different personnel in part of that Everton team. The core needs to be strengthened significantly.
Okay, if you're looking at that side now, then okay, we finished, like you've rightly said, we finished 16 points ahead, was it, or whatever it was, with West Brom and Albion in the end. Obviously the gap between us and Arsenal and Manchester United wasn't that great, really, considering the amount of money that they spend. You could even say it wasn't that far behind Liverpool, who finished in 4th. Really, I know that there was enough of a gap there, but I suppose now for us, we're in the first week in June. People are getting very twitchy. You've already mentioned that obviously Manchester City have spent some big money, but I suppose I'd argue with the City thing, as they're in a much easier position for them to strengthen. They're a club that has got untold wealth. It seems they're a club that is in the Champions League. They've got Pep Guardiola. They pay big wages. So it's a lot easier to sit in a room with a player and say, come to Manchester City. However, they started somewhere, didn't they? I was reading something yesterday that when they bought Carlos Tevez from Manchester United for 47 million or whatever they paid. They'd actually just finished 10th in the Premier League.
Yeah.
So I guess people on Twitter and Facebook and every other social media platform out there would turn around and say, well, if we're going to try and force our way into that, where's our Robinho, where's our Carlos Tevez? And Manchester City have demonstrated they could do that. It's time for Everton to demonstrate it.
It's funny you mention Tevez, because I remember Robinho signing for them and saying, I'm made up to sign for Manchester United.
Yeah.
he didn't know he'd sign for Manchester City, but they got that deal over the line, and it's symbolic more than anything else, isn't it? And for Everton to do the same thing, it would require a lot more money, I think.
Yeah.
But also you're working in a different financial era now, aren't you? Because you've got financial fair play that you need to adhere to. I think it's turnover plus 7 to 9%. That's not a lot for Everton in comparison to Manchester City, who've got big sponsorship deals. So it may well be actually that this becomes a gradual thing for Everton, that we need to build up over time, 2 or 3 years, the project, with the end goal being top 4 in Koeman's last year in charge.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, listen, there's always going to be with Evertonian, so there's always that negative element anyway, isn't it? That you kind of caught between negativity and realism with Everton, and the fact that we've just been burned that many times, haven't we? So I suppose it'll take all of us. Some will get there quicker than others to have that belief in what Moshiri's trying to achieve at Everton. But myself and Ped have been at pains to say there has been tangible progress over the 12 months since Roberto left. There has been, I would say, a massive difference in the club, and we can see it at the stadium. We can see it at the training ground. The new lettering and everything else went up last week. Signage went up last week. There, we've seen stuff with the community. But what we really all want to see is running out on that pitch, don't we? And that's where we want to see. We want to see that first. See, it's really difficult. You just did kind of hit the nail on the head with financial fair play. A lot of people won't really accept that as an excuse as to why we can't spend what we'd like to spend. It was easier for Manchester City to come in. If Farhad Moshiri had took over Everton at the same time, we could have blown 150 million in a big way without any consequences. Now it's different, but that has changed. It was a problem last summer with the wage structure, because we simply didn't have the manoeuvre in the wage bill until John Stones went. The John Stones deal enabled us a lot more manoeuvrability really in the wage structure. This year though, with the improved sponsorship deals, it's gone up again. So I think that there is scope for Everton to pay big wages now, and quite a bit as well at the moment. But how do we get that? How do we get that first big name in your opinion? And are we? How do we get the first big name in? We'll come to the next.
It's a difficult question, isn't it? Because if we use the example of Man City again, what they've got going for them is they've got a world-class manager and an easy sell. Fantastic facilities at Eastlands, world-class players doing the Champions League. And I think Champions League is the big selling point, isn't it, for players? They want to play in the Champions League, and if not, the Europa League. What Everton have done in getting back into the Europa League is at least give themselves a chance of getting the up-and-coming players that may well go on to be big names in the future. The likes of your Romelu Lukaku's and those kinds of players. If you can get young, hungry players and put them into this Koeman setup, then there's still a chance that Everton can do very, very well. You're right to say that there was progress made. You look at the signings of Idrissa Gueye and Morgan Schneiderlin. That together with Tom Davies coming through, that means we've got a really stable core in that midfield. And you go back 12 months and it was Gareth Barry and James McCarthy, and it was all so kind of stolid and stale, wasn't it? Sideways passing, no real movement at all, and it was these kind of blocks in a 4-2-3-1, and that really needed to change. Koeman's come in, he's just ripped it all up and started again, and there has been progress, you're right, definitely. I just wonder, again, as I'm saying, if our gradual progress is going to be kind of slightly less successful than the rapid breakneck progress of Liverpool buying a Virgil van Dijk or Manchester City getting in Bernardo Silva, because they're big names that make a huge difference on the pitch, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, so should we? This is the one I have difficulty with, because people, I see on my timeline, no one seems good enough for us. That's the first thing that I've noticed. And yeah, of course, within a couple of the names mentioned, you look yourself and go, no, thank you. Yeah. Of course, but we can't be too good for everybody. But on one hand, no one's good enough for us, and on the other hand, when we're linked with players who are quite a level up, some fans complain that they're unrealistic targets. So where do we, in between those two lines, what kind of players do you think we should be looking at? You see, I fully believe that we should be trying to get the very best. Now, okay, yeah, we may get knocked back. It happened last summer. You know, the manager wanted Axel Witsel. I'm really sold on the kid, but he wanted him. Okay, we got knocked back. Juan Mata, we wanted Juan Mata. Juan Mata didn't really want to leave Manchester United, but the conversations were there, and he was open to moving to Everton if United would have said, yeah, enough's enough. Just that and that. I think Marino was quite happy just to keep him and see how we got on. So I would be targeting Lacazette for argument's sake and having a go, why not? But is that too much of a stretch? Should we be going one level down, like you said, maybe in terms of up and coming players who aren't at that level? Or do you think it's worth us trying to get that very top level, or at least trying to have conversations with some of them anyway?
You've got to strike the right balance, haven't you, between being unrealistic, and I've seen the likes of Donnarumma from AC Milan mentioned. Everton are not going to buy Donnarumma at this stage in their development. It's just not going to happen. But the idea of bringing in players that are on the market, that are going to move, maybe from the likes of a Lyon, if you mention Lacazette, there's nothing wrong with putting a bid in for somebody like him, because I think it shows ambition at the very least. You may get knocked back, and probably in all likelihood you will at this stage, but there are also lots of good footballers that Everton can buy on the continent and in the Premier League. You look back to the business we did last summer and even in January, the signings of Idrissa Gueye for 7 million, Morgan Schneiderlin for 25. They're two players that have made a big difference, and yet they're not kind of household names. They're not world stars, are they? No. They're good players in their own right, but I don't think anybody would label them as being in that top bracket. I look at the likes of Gylfi Sigurdsson, who's been mentioned quite a lot, and he's tried and tested in the Premier League. I think he would add not just a bit of creativity in the midfield, but also a bit of set piece prowess, and we really do need that, because the delivery from dead balls, corners and set pieces is dreadful at times, isn't it? And somebody like him, I'm sure he'd jump at the chance of moving from Swansea to Everton. That would be a sensible signing. You linked with the likes of Jordan Pickford. I've got my reservations about Pickford, but signing England's best young keeper sends out a message as well, doesn't it? So it's about striking that right balance, maybe between getting in realistic targets, but then also making sure you progress sufficiently as well. Yeah,
I mean, we done it kind of last summer. We'd had back-to-back 11s. We brought in people like Ashley Williams, Idrissa Gueye, like you said. We've got Stekelenburg in there, and he just made that squad a little bit better. We went up a level, Yannick Bolasie, who I think's been a massive miss at Duag, because I think as we got better as a team, I think Bolasie would have got better as well, playing the way we ended up playing, because we've not really got anyone on that off that left hand side, have we? Morales is flatter to deceive. Some weeks he's amazing, and then he disappears for another half a dozen games.
You look at that 3-0 away win against Sunderland earlier in the season, and Everton had Gerard Deulofeu on the right, Bolasie on the left, stretching play, and Kevin Morales through the middle in that second half, and it was full of pace and power. We counter-attacked brilliantly that day. And some of the games towards the end of the season where we were crying out for that kind of option on the break, I think back to Man United, where we squandered so many opportunities on the counter, but also Swansea. Away from home, we didn't look like scoring goals, did we, for the last 2 or 3 months? And that's something that needs to be addressed, because I still think there's a lack of pace and power in those forward areas without Bolasie.
What do you think? Me and Ped would have been scratching our heads. We asked Matt the exact same thing, is that there's such a contrast in the home form to the away form. is it just, in your opinion, is it just that we are more comfortable at Goodison, or is it? I mean, I kind of look at it and just think it's personnel. I just don't think our players are good enough to go away and take these teams apart. But I suppose people could quite easily shoot my argument down, because at Goodison we do it very, very easily, really. I mean, we lost 2 home games. One was a 95th minute spawny goal against the Devils team, and Chelsea took a worldie from Pedro to get them up and running, after 65 minutes or whatever it was. Other than that, we were in every single game. We were very good in most of those games. We won 13 of them. How do we, I mean, what is it? What is the difference when we're not at Goodison to when we are?
I think you're right, it's probably personnel, isn't it? You look at what we did at Goodison over the course of the season, and there was a sense that maybe the players fed off the atmosphere in the stands. It's close and compact. You know yourself from playing there, it is really compact and claustrophobic almost for players playing there for the first time. And I think the dimensions of the pitch and the way Koeman likes to play with a high energy style really unsettles sides that come to Goodison. So maybe then when you go away from home and you don't have that, and what you're looking to do is you want to play in a slightly different way. You maybe against the likes of West Ham, that awful 0-0, what you want or need is somebody like a Gylfi Sigurdsson in the middle to put a free kick into the top corner and just change that. And we've not got many match winners, have we?
No.
You look at Ross Barkley's role up to now, he hasn't done that as much as he maybe should have done, particularly away from home. Romelu Lukaku tends to be a striker that needs chances to score goals, and apart from that, who's there to win games for Everton? Ronald Koeman's already identified this as an area, hasn't he? He said he wants productivity, is the word he keeps using, the buzzword. He wants productivity from his wide forwards and his attacking midfielders, and it may just be a question of bringing in more of that kind of player to unlock a defence at 0-0 when you're not playing particularly well.
Because I mean, you can look at the likes of Stoke where we didn't perform, Middlesbrough, which was a grim 0-0. West Ham, like you just rightly said, Swansea. I mean, you can go through. There's a lot of games there this season that we've blown. That to me is that people talk about a goalkeeper. Of course, a goalkeeper's massively important to us. People go on about centre backs. We need 2 new centre backs. Defensively, I think we weren't that bad when you look at it. We've much improved from the previous 2 seasons. But I just think that final third, for me, it just ain't good enough. It's not good enough. I mean, everyone who watches the show will know that I love Ross Barkley, but away from home, he's not really performed to the level he should. As you say, Romelu Lukaku gets most of his goals at Goodison. Yeah. It has to be said. He's a little bit. He looks. When I watch us away from home, there's big gaps between us, and Rom always looks isolated. And we just look like we're slow. And yet when at Goodison we break, we're quick, and I don't know whether it's a mentality thing or if it is just personal. I don't know whether our players, technically wise, they might be very good, but are they if they've got that mental stability, that mental strength to go out when it's a tight game away from home and go and nick it and go and force it. And I don't know whether we've got that. And yes, Gylfi Sigurdsson, loads of technique, loads of ability, great set pieces, but still, for me, I'm not sure. I think what you can say is if you put enough of them in your squad, you will unlock defences. So for every Gylfi Sigurdsson, I'd want to see someone who's pacey and who could unlock it. And I think that for me, Enner Valencia's gone back. He's not. We know we're not taking up his option. Kone's gone. Rightly or wrong. Rightly, let's be honest. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I'm not sure he's ready yet. I'm not going to say he's not good, because at times he's looked very good, and at other times he's looked a bit off it. And I think the position we use him in doesn't really help. And we'll do something on the under 20 stuff later on the World Cup. We can talk a bit more about Calvert-Lewin there. But I think what I've seen of him in the first team is he looks more comfortable down the middle. Yeah. But again, I still think he's a little bit short. Obviously, Ronald Koeman's identified this. He wants a Sandro Ramirez. It looks like, well, he's going to go to Atletico Madrid, isn't he? But that kind of player would would almost be ideal for us. So let me ask you about Jamie Vardy, because we were linked with him over the weekend. Now, is he something you would subscribe to for Everton, bringing him in?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? First and foremost, it can't be as a replacement for Romelu Lukaku if you're going to progress, and the same goes. There are debates surrounding Gylfi Sigurdsson or Ross Barkley. If you're going to progress, you need those two players, don't you? And that's what I think we need to do. I've never been a huge fan of Vardy because I think he's pretty one-dimensional in what he does. But by the same token, he does have things in his game that would help Everton, particularly away from home. That searing pace on the break would be a big factor. And
as well.
And there's the relationship there with Steve Walsh, who obviously took him to Leicester in the first place. So you can see why that rumour's emerged, but it just can't be as a replacement for Lukaku, because I actually don't think he's in the same league as Rom in terms of general finishing, but also all-round play. Lukaku's bigger, he's more likely to hold the ball, and Vardy's a very different player. So we'd need to
hold the ball. Stop it, mate. But yeah, now I know what you say. For me, when I look at it, and I think if you got Vardy off Romelu Lukaku, then you've got, and then you could have a Sigurdsson or a Ross Barkley or something else on the other side, because I think Vardy can play on the left of that three quite comfortably. I
see parallels between Vardy and Perez, who they tried to sign last summer, and also Jamie Vardy. That you're after that live wire centre forward that can play on the shoulder and stretch games a bit.
Okay, well, Lucas Perez then, yes or no? Would you be interested in Everton? Looks as though he's going to leave Arsenal. We've done a poll over the weekend. I think it was 66% of Everton fans, it was 2,500 got involved in it, so 66%. It's quite a decent poll. The government use 100 people and tell you everything. Said that they'd go for him. Now, obviously, we're disappointed he chose Arsenal last year, but players will choose. A, they'll choose London every day of the week. B, they'll choose a name like Arsenal all over, because they've been in the Champions League as well. So, as disappointing as it is to us as Evertonians, you can understand the players' point of view. But would he be someone that you'd be willing to take a punt on?
Yeah, that snub can't be a factor, can it?
It can't be, because it is what it is. Liverpool are just about to pay £40 million for a player that turned them down 2 years ago in terms of Salah. So you've got to. It's football, isn't it? It's a business. So just because someone goes, no, I'm going there. Although, don't go back for Sissoko if you're watching it. Just leave that well alone. Leave that well alone. But Perez, yes or no?
Yeah, I think I'd be in that 66%, to be honest. I like what I saw of him when he was playing for Deportivo, and I was on board with that as a signing then. He's also done well in his cameo appearances for Arsenal. Scored a lot of goals if you look at his goal to game ratio. And like I said with Vardy, he does at least have some different aspects. I like the fact that he's a left-footer, to be honest, and could play on that other side. It gives us a bit of something different. But if I'm being honest, I think I'll probably see his future back in Spain with a Sevilla or a Valencia or somebody of that ilk. So if he's available, but maybe the chances you might get another Sandro Ramirez situation where a Spanish player ultimately snubs Everton to stay in the homeland or go back to the homeland.
I mean, this is going to be the challenge over the next few weeks, I think, for Everton to, we know that Koeman is probably bouncing in. Well, he's coming, isn't he? Let's be honest, he's coming in. But that as a squad player, that's, Ronald Koeman likes him. You've got to just go, okay, we haven't seen. I certainly haven't seen enough of him to say whether he's good or bad. Some Southampton fans don't like him. Some have said he's all right. The manager likes him, that's what he can go with. But he's not going to be. He's not your marquee signing, is he? And Koeman's going to be made up with him. He's just someone who will go in the squad. They need to start pulling a couple of signings out, I think, within the next kind of week or so. And I think that's what they're aiming for. And so then it'll kick off. Then I think once, if they can get a couple in through the door, I feel as though the fans will kind of go, okay, right, let's go then now, let's see what else we do, because the squad needs, let's be honest, we need 7 or 8, don't we?
We do, but the difficult thing is how you integrate that number of players into a team. We've spoken a bit recently of the likes of West Ham and what they did last summer, where they just brought in 10 or 12 bodies. That takes ages for everyone to fully integrate, and I don't know. I think if we were to do that, we'd have a sluggish, slow start to the campaign. It may well be a question. I agree we need that many in, but it may well be a question for now of picking and choosing, prioritising positions. So maybe you go through and you go, we need a new goalkeeper, a new centre back, a new striker, and you do it that way. You get those 3 in, and then you chop and change with the best of your under 23s. Because if we are to bring in Cuco Martinez, as you've mentioned there, it's highly unlikely he's going to be our first choice right back.
No.
I think that means John Joe Kenny or Mason Holgate start at right back in the first game of the season in August. I think Cuco Martinez is a stopgap in there until Seamus Coleman comes back. So I wouldn't read too much into that as a sign, and I'm not a huge fan of his by any means. He seems very one-dimensional in his play, but you may see the meshing of incoming signings with the best of the under 23s, and that might be a more sustainable way of making mass changes at this point.
But what about the demands of the Europa League then? Because obviously he said himself quite openly the squad isn't big enough now, and we're losing. Coney's gone, Valencia's gone, so we're 2 down. Cleverly's gone, and so when you go through Nias is back, but is he going to go out again? He's not going to give Nias a chance, is he? He's written him off. We don't know what's happening with Gerard Deulofeu.
Although reports in Spain are saying today, aren't they, that Koeman's really not a fan and will look to get rid.
Well, I'm quite sure he would, because Jerry's not the hardest working player, is he? I think he's got a lot of qualities, but if he's not got the message now, what you need to succeed for Ronald Koeman, he's going to sell him if there's an option, isn't he? Gareth Barry, we don't know what's happening with him. A lot of rumours around the Villa thing, and people say no, we won't go, but you don't know if they come in and go captain and you'll play 30 odd games. We might look and go, well, I'm 36, it's me club, because Villa, we've got Villa a long time. I'll go back there and have a swan song.
The players you list them are all elderly figures in that dressing room. They're all senior players, with the exception of Deulofeu. You're going through and you're thinking, well, there's no place. Kone's gone. What about Phil Jagielka? Does he stay around at the club? You've got Gareth Barry, Stecklenburg. There are question marks over quite a lot of these players in the Everton squad. And
I understand he can't go 8 out. But I'd say we need half a dozen, even if everybody stayed. Because that Europa League, we've seen near the end of the season, the bench was, especially with the lads going off to the under 20 World Cup, there was nothing on the bench really, was there? And you're looking and I still think Funes Mori will go out the door. I can see a Spanish team coming in for him in the summer. And
if an Italian side offers upwards of 10 million, you wonder whether he'd still be at Everton in August.
So I suppose I get what you're saying. It can't be 7 or 8 for the team. But it should be 7 or 8 for the team. And what I mean by that is 4 of them might go into the team, and the other 4 might have to wait and bide the time to go, well, I've bought you, but at the moment he's playing that position, you're going to have to bide your time. And I suppose that's why the manager's on such big money, isn't he? Because he's got to make those decisions.
He is. What is he, the sixth highest paid manager, according to report? But I actually think the most important thing for Everton is that they get those players in, whichever players they've identified, they get them in early. Because you look at, we're starting our season now on, is it July the 29th?
27th.
July the 27th. So we're only a month and a bit away from that.
They're back less than 4 weeks now to pre-season.
You need, in time for that pre-season training, you need to have the bulk of your players in.
If you're talking about a goalkeeper and 1, probably 2 centre-backs that he wants to bring in, that's kind of key. You need them in day one, because you need to start building that understanding. Because listen, we've got 2 games in the Europa League that we've got, a 2-legged tie, and we've seen West Ham come up short 2 years on the run for not being fully prepared for it. So we've worked hard all season. You want to get into that groups, and really then you can give John Joe Kenny time and stuff like that. It might be that a couple of those lads start the first Europa League game anyway, although John Joe Kenny will be on his knees because he looks knackered now at that World Cup, doesn't he? But it's going to be an interesting one. Go on then, what are your hopes? We're going to have you back over the summer, so this can change, but if you're looking at it now, what do you think we should realistically be be looking for next season?
Definitely a new number one. That would be top priority for me. A few names that we've been linked with so far, like Jordan Pickford, who I'm still not.
Who would be yours then? Who'd be, if you could forget the hire? Who out of the players that Everton have been linked with goalkeeper wise would you be delighted to see coming?
I don't think there's a perfect solution, because you look at some of the names that have been bandied about, and as we've said earlier, we made a bit of a joke of Donnarumma. We're not going to be able to get somebody like him in. He'd be an outstanding signing for Everton. But what you may have to do is you may have to get a couple in, and then maybe do something along the lines of let Pickford grow, let him make mistakes, but then have somebody alongside him who can come in if needs be, and stake his own claim and challenge Pickford and bring him on. Kasper Schmeichel's an interesting one. I like his leadership. I think he's one of those figures. I prefer the goalkeeper to come out and claim the ball instead of punching it. That's one of my main criticisms with Pickford. Actually, he comes out and he punches. He was very impressive, Schmeichel, in the Champions League for Leicester, and of course he was crucial in them winning the league. I know you're not sold on this, Baz, but I actually think if you were to get him in with Pickford and they were your two keepers, for the time being, that would be Everton more or less covered.
But will Pickford come to be number two?
That's a good question, but how many games? If Everton win the Europa League, they're going to have to play 20 odd games. You've got 38 in the Premier League. You're hoping we progress in both, maybe one or both of the domestic cup competitions. So there's the potential there to play 50, 60 games next season, and Everton are going to need to have reinforcements all over the pitch. I just think if you make Pickford your number one, he's only young, isn't he? Is he 20, 21, 23?
I thought he was younger, but apparently he's 23. Yeah.
Well, he's older than I thought, but he's still young by goalkeeping terms.
Yeah.
And you'd have to accept that he would make mistakes next season in a similar vein to the way John Stones did a few years ago. Yeah. But the worry is, you get somebody in like that, a few mistakes start to creep in, and then the fans start to get on their back, and that's for me, if you spend 20-30 million on Pickford, that's the worry, because I think sometimes they require a bit of patience, and we don't always have that as Evertonians, do we, Baz?
I mean, Jack Butland is one that a lot of people would like. Obviously, I thought it was a knee injury, but apparently it was a bad ankle injury. I just don't think, I mean, we could have had him a couple of years ago, and our Spanish manager didn't want him. Well, yeah, whatever. But is he? I mean, he'd be a great signing, wouldn't he? But I don't see Stoke letting him out. I think they want him to stay, and I don't know whether I'm not sure whether he'd want to leave there yet, because they've just nursed him back to health, and he's only played. I think he only played the last 3 or 4 games, but he still looked very, very good when he was back. But would he be someone you'd like? Is he the best of the rest? Fraser Forster, Joe Hart, any of those three?
Butland's an interesting one, but I mentioned earlier that I don't think there's any perfect solution for Everton. A fit Jack Butland is as close to that as you're likely to get, but I just think you need to see if he's fully over that injury. Yeah, that's a really bad one. I know he played 2 or 3 games towards the end of the season, but that's certainly not enough to kind of convince you that he's totally over that injury. You'd want to see him doing it over the course of 6 months, 12 months even, over the course of a season. It was a massive mistake from Everton and not getting him a couple of years ago.
It's about 3 times we should have signed him, and we've blew it every single time.
He's got the potential to be England's best goalkeeper, certainly. The other 2 names, Fraser Forster, not a big fan of him. He's a big guy, and he'll come out and he'll claim crosses, but he always seems to have a mistake in him. And they're normally howlers as well, aren't they? Like, he miskicks a ball, or he comes out and he doesn't claim a cross. I also now think he's
good at Anfield.
He's great at Anfield,
he does quite well.
Although we thought this with Yannick Bolasie, didn't we? And then he goes and gets injured and doesn't play in the Anfield derby. I'm not sold on him. And then Joe Hart is an interesting name, just because I think he's got the leadership qualities that we'd be looking for. Maybe if not the rest of the package, because there are flaws to his game as well. You look at the way he dives to one side, and I think that's been a worry for Everton up to now. But then also, the fact that he's gone away to Torino, he's not pulled up any trees. He's actually done poorly.
Yeah, he hasn't.
Made a lot of mistakes. I saw a game against Inter Milan. I think it finished 4-4 in Turin, and he made 2 or 3 really bad errors. So maybe he's not quite at the level that we're looking for in terms of ability. His leadership, that would be a bonus, of course, wouldn't it?
So that'd be the one priority area that you'd be looking at now. Would that be your most, or for me, I want a centre forward, a striker. I love strikers, but I suppose you start at the back.
Yeah, I mean, there's a case for keeper. I think there's also a quite strong case for another centre back as well.
Yeah. Michael Keane
would be good if we could get him in. My worry is as a former United player and a United fan, if they come in for him, he'll probably go there, won't he? But
haven't they just been linked with a couple of Portuguese defenders, haven't they?
They've been linked with Lindelof from Benfica. That one's been a rumour for quite a long time, and I think that probably will happen this summer. So that's something. He's a good player. He's an interesting player. Pacey but also powerful as well. Swedish international, and that could well have a bearing on what Everton do, because if they get him, then maybe there's no need for Michael Keane, and then Everton can push through that deal. So Michael Keane would be a good one. Virgil van Dijk's the dream, isn't he? But I believe he may well go elsewhere.
I think the money's
a factor, and he'll want to play in the Champions League.
It's frustrating because Everton were in for him in January, and it wasn't totally discouraged.
He's got the same agents as Ronald Koeman,
and he was interested, and then of course he goes and gets injured and is out for the rest of the season, and that was kind of almost typical of Everton, really.
It's maybe that your window of
opportunity had gone
to sign him.
It's kind of gone now. Whereas in January, if we'd have really tested their resolve, who knows that he could have, if he wouldn't have got injured, who knows, he might have been an Everton player in January. But
the other one, of course, is we've been linked with for the last kind of 18 months or so, is Koulibaly from Napoli. I've seen quite a lot of them this season, and he's strong and powerful. He's basically everything you want in a Premier League centre back. He's tailor made to playing over here.
Can we get him out of there?
Difficult, very difficult. They've just qualified for the Champions League again, but for whatever reason, Napoli are vulnerable, aren't they? And you saw with Higuain, I know he went to Juventus, but you saw with Higuain they can lose players. It'd be a stretch for Everton, given the fact that we're not in the Champions League. But he's certainly somebody you want to be interested in, and maybe a fitting alternative to Van Dijk if you can't get him from Southampton.
I think by all accounts he was interested in coming last summer, and we'd just been horrendous for 2 years. So this year we're better than we're in the Europa League. Who knows? I mean, again, it's probably time for Everton to puff the chest out now and go and say, well,
definitely,
there's 50 million, then let's have him, and see whether that happens. I mean, you'd like to think that Steve Walsh has been in the job for 10 months now, 11 months. You'd like to think that all this would kind of be tied up, but very, very interesting. Nice one, Pad. We'll keep an eye on all of those those names you've thrown out and the areas. But a big thanks to Paddy Boyland for joining us here on Toffee TV. It's just a general chat about Everton season and where we're up to in the pre-season. Don't forget to check out any other videos we do, and see you soon on Toffee TV.